Let me read to you a passage from the 6th chapter of St. John's Gospel, verses 30 to 35. It's the Gospel for Tuesday of the 3rd week of Eastertide. St. John writes, "So they asked Jesus, 'What sign then will you give that we may see it and believe you? What will you do? Our forefathers ate the manna in the desert. As it is written, He gave them bread from heaven to eat.' Jesus said to them, 'I tell you the truth. It is not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world.' 'Sir,' they said, 'from now on give us this bread.' Then Jesus declared, 'I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry, and he who believes in me will never be thirsty.'" That's from John chapter 6 verses 30 to 35. What does it suggest to us? Well, it suggests, of course, the true bread of heaven. What do I mean? Well, if there is one thing which is obvious from a reading of the Old Testament, it is the defining character of the Exodus events. The departure from Egypt, the years in the wilderness, and the entry into the Promised Land profoundly shaped the religious outlook of the children of Israel. So marked was this memory, as evidenced in the Old Testament scriptures, that one cannot be but a little sceptical of the weight given by many to the current lack of archaeological evidence for the great events referred to in the Hebrew scriptures. Where is the archaeological evidence, it is urged, for the event of the departure from Egypt, or the long sojourn in the wilderness, or the mass invasion by Israel of the land of Canaan, and for other supposed facts such as the career of David, Solomon, and so forth? Well, while there is a present lack of that kind of evidence, or very little of it, there is the fact of the great memory by the chosen people, so manifest in their scriptures. The nation was shaped by this memory, and our Lord himself, true God and true man, refers explicitly to these past historical events. In our very passage today, he refers to Moses and to the manna he gave from heaven. I make these points simply to stress how much the Exodus events were a criterion of religious truth for the children of Israel. Our gospel today, our gospel scene today, opens with the crowds making a demand of Jesus. He had told them that the work that God asked of them was to believe in him. To this they responded, "What sign then will you give, that we may see it and believe you? What will you do? Our forefathers ate the manna in the desert. As it is written, He gave them bread from heaven to eat." In the desert, Moses fed the people with manna from heaven for their entire sojourn. You, Jesus of Nazareth, have multiplied the loaves and the fish. Could you not do what Moses did and feed us continually with bread from heaven? What sign will you do that we may see and believe you? Our Lord replies by pointing prophetically to what will be the true bread from heaven, his own person. Though the manna which Israel received in the desert came from God in answer to the prayer of Moses, it was not heavenly food. It was earthly food and served to sustain life on earth. It was a material substance which modern scholars have even attempted to identify. Some suggest it was the resin from the tamarisk tree. Others suggest it was a form of plant lice, or the thalli of certain lichens, or what was called Psilocybe cubensis mushrooms, or a kosh, a species of locust, or the sap of certain succulent plants. The manna in the desert had the powers of material food. It was God's miraculous gift of earthly food. Our Lord says that the true bread of God is heavenly. It does indeed come down from heaven and give life to the world. It is heavenly bread which gives life forever and to all mankind. The manna in the desert had none of these powers. This is a remarkable announcement, which those who are fully familiar with the doctrine of the Eucharist may take too much for granted. Our Lord is heralding an extraordinary food for the journey. He is acting as a new Moses for the children of Israel and for all of mankind. A new sustenance is coming for all. As Moses, by God's power, provided earthly food for the journey of the children of Israel, so Jesus Christ will provide heavenly food for the journey of the whole world. It will be the true bread from heaven, the bread that manna prefigured. Manna was merely a pointer to the true bread from heaven that would take all of humanity to life in God and to heaven. What is this heavenly food? Sir, they said, from now on give us this bread. Then Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry, and he who believes in me will never be thirsty. Our Lord calmly and publicly makes a breathtaking claim, which had no precedent in all of the Scriptures, and which placed himself far above all. He himself is the bread of life that God has sent from heaven. It is he himself who gives life to the whole world. He is the answer to true hunger and true thirst. If a person lives on him, his true hunger will be satisfied. Our Lord is placing himself at the very center of revealed religion. Never before had certain things been said that Jesus Christ was now saying. He is himself the heart and soul of true religion, and a person who lives on him and in him will possess a heavenly life that is far more than this terrestrial life. In order to live, in order to survive the journey through the wilderness of life, we must go to Jesus. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry. He said, he is the source of life, life here and life everlasting. He is speaking as God would speak. Let us then look on Jesus Christ as our all. If we truly possess him by our love and our faith, by our devout hearing of his word from the church, and by our sincere reception of him in the sacraments, life will be ours forever.